It's like groupthink. You must do this, you must do that. You can't have independent thought.
Yeah.
You can't look at works of art in case you start thinking the wrong way.
Just like newsflash, classical paintings will probably have nudity in them.
Yes.
You're right. Angling, and
And compared to what you can see on Instagram...
Well, yes.
GBNews, the People's Channel.
It's 9 p.m. This is Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Ben Leo.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman?
No, there is... there is...
Oh dear, so long to one of the most divisive politicians Scotland has ever seen, Nicola Sturgeon. She calls time on politics, but what legacy does she leave behind? Also tonight.
As you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs, so whatever they charge us, we're charging them.
So much for the Prime Minister's big trip to Washington. President Trump hits Europe with crippling tariffs that includes the United Kingdom. Meanwhile...
inherited a system which is broken, it is indefensible economically and morally, and we must and we will reform it.
2.9 million working-age Brits are now claiming disability benefits, including 500,000 for mental health. So is the government right to target $6 billion in cuts from Sick Note Britain? And they say age is only a number. Well, that's certainly true for more than 1,000 illegal migrants who have been blagging about their age and even sneaking into British classrooms. The Tories are now demanding scientific age checks for illegals. Also tonight, the government makes it a hat-trick of blows to our hard-working farmers. Now they're scrapping subsidies. So what's the real agenda? And a brave firefighter's forced out the job she loves because she refused to obey the cult of gender ideology. Andrea Pieri joins me live in a GB News exclusive. Day 2 of the Cheltenham Festival concludes, but where best to watch the greatest show on turf? Gloucestershire, or maybe, in top British fashion, Benidorm. And talking of stallions, 2 Brexit heavyweights get physical outside Parliament.
That's assault! No.
Oh, who's your money on? My panel tonight is Director of Popular Conservatives Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunewald. Jam-packed show coming up, including the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press. First, though, let's get your news headlines with Casey Bowen.
Ben, thank you and good evening. Your latest headlines from the GB newsroom at 9 o'clock. President Trump has said that the US can put pressure on Russia to accept that 30-day ceasefire deal with Ukraine, although the president added that he hoped that would not be necessary. Speaking during a meeting with the Irish Taoiseach, the president went on to add that, quote, there are things you could do in a financial sense that would be bad for Russia, and also said that NATO can be a force for good. The president's latest comments come as Defence Secretary John Healey has met with his counterparts from France, Germany, Poland and Italy in Paris today for more talks on Ukraine. President Zelensky hailed what he called constructive talks and says he wants to use a potential 30-day ceasefire as a chance to draft a permanent peace plan which could include security guarantees. And breaking tonight, President Putin has visited the Kursk region today, and we'll bring you more on that developing story shortly. Here's what Defence Secretary John Healey had to say.
And I say to President Putin, over to you now. You said you want to talk, prove it. Accept the ceasefire, start negotiations and end the war. And make no mistake, the pressure is now on Putin.
The European Union was set up to take advantage of the US. That's what President Trump said as he was discussing his decision to impose tariffs on steel and aluminium imports. President Trump went on to say, also during that meeting with the Taoiseach, that he will respond to the European Union's counter-tariffs, adding that there will be very little flexibility on tariffs when they come in. Sir Keir Starmer has said that the UK will keep all options on the table to respond, and the Business Secretary described President Trump's decision to impose those tariffs as disappointing. The UK steel industry has also warned that the tariffs couldn't have come at a worse time. Canada and the European Union have announced retaliatory tariffs. President Trump set out his response earlier.
The European Union treats us very badly. They have for years. And as you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. And so I don't know why people get upset about that, because there's nothing more fair than that. There are some cases where they're a little beyond reciprocal because, you know, we've been abused for a long time as a country. We have been abused really for a long time, and we will be abused no longer.
And back here at home, the Queen has attended Style Day at Cheltenham Festival today, serving in her role as joint patron of the Jockey Club. Queen Camilla presented trophies for the Queen Mother Champion steeplechase. And it's been a sporting day for the royal family, with Prince William attending Aston Villa's match with Club Brugge. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Ben.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. Thank you for your company. Nicola Sturgeon announced today she's stepping away from politics for good. She resigned, of course, as Scottish First Minister in 2023, but today said she wouldn't contest next year's election as a member of the Scottish Parliament. So, what was her legacy? Among many failures, it was under Sturgeon's watch that a trans rapist, a biological man, was sent to serve time in a female prison.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman?
No, there is circumstances in which a trans woman will be housed in the male prison estate.
Self-confessed feminist Miss Sturgeon could also never bring herself to call the trans rapist Isla Bryson a man. In fact, in an insult to women everywhere, she did the opposite.
There is no such procedure in the current law for somebody getting a gender recognition certificate. My comments about her, the person being a rapist is in context of what should happen to them within the prison service. This is
Thank you, First Minister. I think you just referred to Isla Bryson using the word her. Does that mean you do, in fact, think she is a woman?
Anything into...
And seemingly fixated with LGBT issues, Sturgeon then died on the hill of her insane gender recognition bill, which would have seen victims of sexual assault in Scotland forced in court to refer to their trans attackers by their preferred pronouns.
I'm a feminist. I will argue for women's rights. I will do everything I can to protect women's rights for as long as I live.
Well, the UK government saw sense and blocked the bill, and the SNP finally gave up its appeal last year. But then there was the SNP finances scandal, for which her estranged husband was charged and Nicola Sturgeon was arrested. £600,000 of party funds given by donors that allegedly disappeared or was spent on other things. She's still under police investigation for that, and both Sturgeon and her estranged husband deny the allegations. Some have praised Nicola Sturgeon for her performance during COVID, for example, though I remember her as an authoritarian who demanded everyone follow silly rules in a bid to outdo Boris Johnson in Westminster.
I can't make this point strongly enough. These rules should not be seen as optional. They are absolutely vital. In many respects, they are the most important part of that first line of defence, all of us, that I keep talking about.
So what did she do after boasting about following the rules?
Before I go any further today, I want to take this opportunity to say how sorry I am for my breach of rules that I ask all of us to follow every single day. I took my face mask off while briefly attending a funeral party last week. I'm sure everyone will have seen in the media this morning a picture of me without it. I was in the wrong.
Yeah, she broke the rules, didn't she? Twice. And then loads of WhatsApp messages critical to the COVID inquiry were then reportedly deleted from her phone. How mysterious. But beyond all the scandals was the failure of Nicola Sturgeon to achieve her most basic goals. Scottish education standards completely collapsed on her watch, and the poverty-related attainment gap, which she promised to eradicate, widened. Scotland is still the drug deaths capital of Europe. The Scottish NHS is still on its knees, and she was even accused of diverting £7 billion of funds for the NHS to other Scottish projects, all while raising taxes on hard-working Scots. Former leader of the SNP, Humza Yousaf, remember him?
The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white.
Well, he said today, I'm excited to see what Nicola goes on to do next. She is one of the most talented politicians of our generation. I'm not sure how much weight that has coming from him. Anyway, finally, Nicola Sturgeon spent half her time throwing nasty accusations around against Conservative politicians. The irony was completely lost on her that perhaps the truth was that actually she wasn't that kind herself.
I detest the Tories and everything they stand for. Just as they're transphobic, you will also find that they're deeply misogynist, often homophobic, possibly some of them racist as well.
You're a fascist, you are a racist, and the south side of Glasgow will reject.
Sense of corruption at the heart of the Westminster system, and that has to be rooted out. That Boris Johnson has so clearly lost the confidence of the UK. It is just, I think, an unsustainable proposition. I detest the Tories and everything they stand for.
OK, let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunewald. Good evening, panel. Welcome along. Zoe, let's start with you ladies first. Nicola Sturgeon, what's her legacy?
Well, I think it's quite mixed. I think that's fair to say. I mean, I think you have to give credit where credit's due. I think she had a really interesting political journey. You know, she had a pretty humble upbringing. She was the first female first minister. She was a long-serving office holder, almost was in the position for a decade. She had several good, I think, progressive policies: free university tuition, the baby box scheme, expanded childcare provision. She raised Scotland's profile on the world stage. She's still seen as a widely respected politician amongst many people in Scotland. That being said, there clearly were issues. There's still an educational attainment gap in Scotland. As you say, it's got one of the highest drug-related deaths statistics in Europe. And, of course, NHS performance is bleak. So, the independence question isn't settled. The SNP is split, and that's even before you go to all the finance issues that surrounded the party as well.
Well, yeah, we've not even mentioned the independence issue, which I think, Adam, she has cemented as being, well, I reckon at least 100 years before that question ever comes around again. She killed it off. Yeah. Despite, by the way, banging on about a second indie ref for years and years and years, which was never going to happen.
She divided Scotland massively. But when she first resigned, many commentators, media figures, MPs, sort of fawning all over her like she was some great leader. She failed on nearly everything that she promised to do.
You must agree, though, she did a great job during COVID, Adam.
Look, she was so authoritarian, and they had such harsh restrictions in Scotland. I remember, she tried to outdo, as you said, Boris all the time. Bonkers. But their stats, their COVID stats, I was quite big on the stats during COVID. Hospitalisations, COVID cases were worse than ours. So she did it all in vain, and she just punished the Scottish people, But again, she failed in the NHS. She failed on education. She failed on drugs. Scotland became the drugs capital of Europe under her tenure. She introduced the mad self-identification rule that trampled all over women's rights. Trans women are not women.
You don't think she's a feminist, then? Because she calls herself a feminist.
I don't know what she is, because anyone that believes that men can suddenly become women, for me, need their heads checked. OK. And, she's meant to be an intelligent woman.
And, Mark, she loved having a pop at your lot, the Tories. We showed that last montage there. She was pretty vicious at times.
She's performed a wonderful public service, because she has exposed exactly what an independent Scotland would look like. I'm rather with you, Ben, that I think now it's 100 years before this question is reinvestigated. I mean, it might happen any time. If the Scottish people wish to leave the Union, I believe they're entitled to. But you've had a glimpse of it now. The sort of government you would be under is the Sturgeon government. Do you want that? I'm very confident if you ran a referendum every 5 years for the next 100 years, thanks to Nicola Sturgeon, the Scots will vote to stay in the Union. That's her legacy.
So, Zoe, you mentioned that that she would have gone on to do other things beyond politics. There was a conjecture maybe she would have liked to have been a human rights ambassador somewhere, but I think, from what we understand, she's not going anywhere. She's just kind of scuttling off with her tail between her legs. What was the death knell for her?
Yeah, I think this is a real indication of how quickly things seem to unravel for her towards the end. You know, there was all the stuff around the finances and the financing of the SNP. There was obviously her husband being arrested and charged. And I think that was a real, problem for her. It was incredibly embarrassing. I mean, we all remember the footage of the police cars outside their home and everything.
They both deny those allegations, of course, and the case is still ongoing, so we can't delve too much into it. But what about the gender bill? I mean, for me, that was pretty pivotal.
I mean, personally, look, I support transgender people. You know, I think that the gender recognition bill is important. But I think...
Sorry to keep interrupting you.
Yeah.
Just before you go on there, do you think Isla Bryson, the case in Scotland, should have ended up in a women's prison?
I think that showed exactly why this is such a complicated issue that deserves real, proper scrutiny and people to look at it carefully, because that was, I think, a mistake. I mean, when you're looking at women's safety, I don't think she should have ended up in that prison. But, well, I'm going to respect people's pronouns. I believe in transgender people.
I'm not when he's a rapist.
Let's not fall out over...
I know, and there's pictures of him in tight leggings with his bulge in your face.
Okay. Zoe, what's your sentencing suggestion to the...
Look, I'm not a legal expert. I don't have...
You need to be a legal expert. It's a moral question. It's not a legal question.
Well,
do you think biological men who identify as women should go to women's prisons? That's the political decision. You don't need to be a legal expert.
I actually do, but I think if somebody is a threat to women's safety, women should be protected. That would be the same if it was a cisgender woman as well.
So you think men who identify as women should go to women's prisons?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
wow.
I believe transgender women should be treated.
Do you agree that's a political decision, not a judicial one?
I mean, probably yes. I don't really know. I'm not entirely clear on the distinction.
Political parties will fight about that at the ballot box. It's not a legal.
Can I just say, I also understand completely why people have concerns about this. I want to make that very clear.
I've got two daughters. I've got massive
look,
concerns,
and I'm a woman. You know, I'm a feminist. I have feared for my safety in the past.
Why would you not think every man would choose a women's prison?
Well, I think predatory men find ways to attack women without going into prison.
But every man who's convicted will choose...
But this is why I think women's safety should be looked at in the round. I think if anyone is going into any prison and is a threat to another prisoner, that should be taken into account.
Trans men should not go into women's prisons.
But not all trans... you mean trans women?
Trans women.
Trans women.
Not all trans women are a threat to cis women.
Not all men are a threat to women.
95% plus of trans women still have a penis and their genitalia. This is the madness. As a father of two daughters, you know, I think it is absolutely crazy that people can think that men can put on a wig and a dress and suddenly identify as a woman.
In prison, especially.
It's mental.
Okay. As the woman on the panel, I have feelings of what it is to be a woman. I know about women's safety. I know about feeling unsafe. I have never felt unsafe by trans women. I know trans women. I have trans female friends. I've never felt unsafe. I have felt unsafe as a result of cis men.
Even we've got Michelle Dewberry, who is a presenter on this channel, has just had to leave her gym and cancel her membership because she tried to get changed in a changing room and a man that identifies as a woman was getting changed.
That's her decision. I wouldn't feel that way. I would not feel that way. But that's her decision.
Zoe, do you think there should be any segregation at all?
Are we talking about Nicola Sturgeon, or are we talking about Zoe's perspective on
her legacy?
Any segregation at all? Or do we just have prisons in which there'll be some men and some women?
Just to take this back to the topic, because this is, you know, just take this back on the topic, which is Nicola Sturgeon. I said I do think that showed that there was a mishandling of the gender recognition bill here. It is clearly a very emotive issue. I understand the strong feelings on both sides, and I think clearly she undermined confidence in what I think is an important piece of legislation.
I think it was the gender recognition bill which really was her death knell, because after the UK government torpedoed it, I think that was just the
Isla Bryson case highlighted basically to the world the insanity of what she was doing.
I know, we saw the clips in the introduction there. Even I don't think Nicola Sturgeon understood what her position was. I think she just thought she was doing the right thing by saying she, and, you know, trying to go along with the LGBT
I don't even
agenda.
like calling him Isla, but I can't remember his name.
It's not the pronouns, it's the safety that matters.
Yeah, OK, interesting. And what about just, sorry, briefly now, the SNP as we stand now, I mean, they've lost loads of seats compared to... One thing Nicola Sturgeon did do is win a lot of seats. She had electoral success. Now that's kind of disappearing. What do you make of Swinney?
I think, well, look, I think Swinney's done a fairly good job of holding the SNP together. I think there's a broader existential point for the SNP, which is that half of the SNP, or broadly, is quite progressive, quite young, and there's another half that is, I guess, a bit more conservative and are more kind of interested in the independence question. And I think trying to unite those two is going to be very difficult for the SNP in the future.
Yeah. OK, great. I always thought with the Indy question, it was so hypocritical. It's like you want to be independent and stay a part of the... rejoin the EU, sorry, where you'd have to adopt their currency, go by all their rules. You'd be in no sense independent whatsoever. Maybe Donald Trump, he's got golf courses in Aberdeen. He can make 51st...
Reform is doing all right in Scotland as well, I think.
What's the polling like?
Ahead of the Tories.
Yeah, they're on the rise, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Right, panel, great start. Thank you very much. Now, we want to make your spring spectacular in our latest and greatest Great British giveaway. Your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need to win.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Very good luck to you. Now, President Donald Trump sent global markets into meltdown this week when he slaps tariffs on steel and aluminium coming into the UK. The EU have hit back with retaliatory tariffs. So the big question is, should the Prime Minister do the same? That's next.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, I'm furious with our director this morning because I said this is not breaking news, and so he's gone all out.
He's gone all
breaking
out.
news everywhere. Because guess what, ladies and gents? The lineup for Glastonbury 2025 has been released.
It's great.
Who cares?
It's
frankly?
great.
Who cares?
I really like it.
I couldn't give a monkeys.
Right, I'll tell you.
An Arctic monkeys.
Well, they're not playing, are they?
No, I've no idea.
I don't think they are. But US pop star Olivia Rodrigo.
Who?
She's very good. British band, the 1975.
Who?
Are going to headline.
And Neil Young, who many of us will remember from decades and decades.
Is he there?
Who is 80 and he's playing.
Right.
And
good for him.
Well, yeah, but that's nothing, because apparently Charlie XCX is playing. Who?
Well, she just won 5 Brit
She did
Awards.
win the Brits,
yes.
absolutely.
Well,
so
I
she's
don't
very
care about
good.
that either.
Stephen, she is a real amazing person.
This is a very brat boy summer.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
And a brat boy summer.
This is growing out my pocket.
It looks like a bouquet.
Alanis Morissette, who I have heard of, Fatboy Slim and the Scissor Sisters.
And Rod Stewart.
Rod Stewart, yeah.
And the Prodigy.
You will have heard of Rod Stewart.
I'm not.
The Prodigy, you would have heard of.
The Prodigy, you would have heard of.
Fatboy Slim, Snow Patrol.
Snow Patrol.
Snow Patrol.
That was a cartoon.
Snow Patrol do the song for Grey's Anatomy. It's brilliant.
I've never seen
The Libertines.
Anyway,
Maccabees.
it's
I think it's a great lineup.
Alex Armstrong and Scarlett Maguire are here for this latest on the breaking news this morning. You couldn't give 2 hoots, could you, Scarlett?
I will not be going to Glastonbury, but my son probably will be for the sort of 15th time in a row.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. Time now for our head-to-head. President Donald Trump sent the world into meltdown with his decision to slap tariffs on aluminium and steel coming into the US. The EU has already hit back, imposing retaliatory tariffs impacting £22 billion worth of US goods from April. And the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, today refused to rule out doing the same.
On the question of tariffs, obviously, like everybody else, I'm disappointed to see global tariffs in relation to steel and aluminium. But we will take a pragmatic approach. We are, as he knows, negotiating an economic deal which covers and will include tariffs if we succeed. But we will keep all options on the table.
So tonight I'm asking, should the British government respond to the US with retaliatory tariffs? Let me know your thoughts by heading to gbnews.com/your say. And going head-to-head on this now are the host of the America Exchange podcast, Eric McElroy, and the Director of Public Affairs at the Adam Smith Institute, Max Marlowe. Good evening, chaps. Thank you for joining me. Max, so much for Sir Keir Starmer's visit to Washington. Doesn't seem to have done anything at all, does it?
This is a general tariff. He's put forward an America First policy. The last thing we want to see is to raise taxes on British industry, which is exactly what a tariff is. And we saw this from the White House yesterday, from the press secretary, giving off this economic nonsense that apparently taxes are paid by, the exporter. No, they're paid by the importer. Do you and do GB News viewers want to see higher taxes on their own goods? They don't, and I'm pretty sure we don't either as economists either. So raising retaliatory tariffs doesn't work. Trump may be a bully, and he speaks to the bully pulpit, but we can come to an agreement with him, and there's some very good polling out there to show that Starmer is the most popular foreign leader amongst Republicans. He's got a good standing. Let's empower him.
Really? So say that again. I don't know if my ears are blocked. According to Republicans in the US, Keir Starmer is the most popular foreign politician.
Foreign leader. Yeah.
What period does that cover? Is it after his trip to Washington?
After the inauguration. After the inauguration. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Eric, what's your thoughts on our Prime Minister?
Well, it's nice to know that he's popular somewhere. I think that's good news for him. I think that these tariffs, the whole thing is ridiculous. There's two ways to deal with Donald Trump. One is to punch him back in the nose when he punches you in the nose. He responds to strength because he is fundamentally a bully who can't handle it himself. The other way to do it is the way that we saw Keir Starmer do it in the first place, which is what made him popular, is he went into the Oval Office, he gave a letter for the king, he flattered Trump, he threw in, a set of gold watches. Who knows whatever else you give to Trump to make him happy. That's what the Prime Minister demonstrated strategically and understandably, and Keir was lauded for that. But that's what you have to do. You've either got to stand up to him right away, or you've got to give him more gifts. Now, I don't know if we can give him a third visit with the king before he's had the second visit with the king, but maybe that's what we have to do to keep the tariffs off.
That visit to the king's kind of been diluted, Eric, because Zelensky was there a few days later in Sandringham, and apparently, I don't know if it's true, probably not, but there were whispers that Donald Trump was saying, oh, I'm not so special after all then. Max...
That shows how petty he is.
Yeah, you think he's petty? He's a massive royalist. Which is a surprise, actually, bearing in mind how much he loves the royal family, he loves Britain, his mother was Scottish, of course. It is surprising he didn't make the UK exempt from these tariffs.
Yeah, Trump is petty in that if someone else sees the king, then he doesn't get, it's not as special if he sees the king. That's the kind of thing I'm saying that Trump is petty about.
OK. Max, where do we go from here then? What do you think the strategy, the tactics of the Labour government will be from here on?
Well, look, steel's special, especially for Trump. There's a big steel lobby in DC, and speak to your fantastic colleague Stephen Edgington about the politics of steel in DC. It's very, very important. It includes those flyover states. It's a big thing for him. I don't really think he was thinking of the UK, really, when he was putting these tariffs in. He's thinking about Canada. And, to go back on Eric's point here, you can punch him back in the nose, he'll punch you straight back. That's why when he proposed tariffs on Canada, Canada hit back. They said, we're going to tariff the energy going into the US. He came back and said, fine, we'll double them. Let's see how we go from here. So how do you deal with it? You utilise the special relationship fundamentally. You go back, you say to Trump, look, we're going to hurt, this is £400 million worth of export here, right? You say, look, we're not a small fish in the pond here, Mr. President. Can you just leave us out? We can talk about this free trade agreement, which, let's remember, he's been very bullish on previously. I hope Labour are too on this. We hear rumours in Westminster, of course, about this sort of stuff. But, I think there's a way out of this diplomatically. I just want to repeat this very clearly for GBNews viewers. Tariffs are a tax on the country which puts them up, and we should not be raising taxes. I cannot be more clear than that. OK, Eric, last question to you. There's been this theory floating around in recent weeks that Donald Trump is deliberately tanking the stock markets. The S&P 500 is on a 12 or 13-day losing streak because he's trying to force the Fed, the Independent Federal Reserve, and Jerome Powell to lower interest rates. What do you make of this? Is he playing, as they like to call, which the term I hate, 4D, 5D chess?
It would be nice to think he has a strategy, but it's hard to say his strategy when he says he's going to put tariffs on Canada and then removes them all in the same day. I mean, it's the hokey-pokey, hokey-cokey of tariffs. He puts the tariffs in, he takes the tariffs off.
But that screws in itself with markets. How can you have market sentiment, even in pre-market futures? On a Friday night, he'll bang on about tariffs, and then on the Monday, they tank.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any logic. If it was all coordinated and thoughtful and there was a plan in place, maybe he's trying to do that. But with Trump, you just never know. I don't think he knows from the beginning of the day to the end of the day what he's doing.
OK, interesting. Right, fascinating discussion. Thank you both. Max Marlow, Director of Public Affairs at the Adam Smith Institute, and Eric McElroy, the host of the America Exchange podcast. Good evening to you both. Thank you. Right, coming up, millions of working-age Brits are now on disability benefits, with mental health claims fueling the shocking rise. So are we just too quick to diagnose mental health conditions in this country? And will the Prime Minister come good on his promise to reform the welfare system? £6 billion worth of cuts he's eyeing up. That's next.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
We have more unsettled weather to come across western parts of the Med through the next few days. There's some heavy, thundery rain pushing into parts of Portugal, including Madeira, also affecting Gibraltar, and heavy rain feeding into northern parts of Italy too. Further east, though, higher pressure here means it's that bit drier, and there'll be a good deal of sunshine too. We also have heatwave conditions building here. Temperatures for some will rise to around 5 to 15 degrees above average. See you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our hope is that this will have impact to be able to drive connections for those who have been suffering from hearing loss and allow them to experience those special moments.
OK, so how does the hearing aid feature actually work?
It's really simple, and that is what's so beautiful about the feature. We designed it so it could be used across all age groups, all tech savviness, if you will. You simply take a hearing test right on your iPhone using the AirPods Pro 2. It creates a personalized hearing profile, which then automatically pre-programs the AirPods Pro 2 to work as a hearing assistive device. And so just with a touch of a button, you'll now be able to augment the frequencies where you may need some assistance. And what's beautiful about the hearing test is it's a clinically validated audiogram. So we compared it to what is considered gold standard in the hearing world. And the hearing aid the hearing aid feature basically simply turns on and allows you to use it not just when you're talking with one another, like with another individual, but whether you're using it across phone calls, your media, your entertainment. So it's a really simple experience.
And have you noticed, because this has been rolled out around the world before it's come here to Britain, but have you seen a spike in people realising that they actually have hearing loss as a result of taking the test with this feature?
I can anecdotally share with you that even just in my circle and talking to people, people sometimes have picked up things that they didn't expect and noticed that they had some hearing issues. What's probably been so impactful is the letters we get from customers. One of the ones that we just got last week was a grandmother who was able to hear her soft-spoken grandchild for the first time by using this. And I think that is what's so special about it. We've already heard from customers around the world who have been able to use it over the past few months, how it's made an impact in their life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. Now, a staggering 2.9 million working-age Brits are now claiming disability benefits in this country, up from 2 million in England and Wales in 2019. That shocking rise includes 500,000 individuals citing poor mental health as their primary condition. Health-related welfare payments are now costing taxpayers £46 billion a year. I think that's the same as the cost of test and trace during COVID. The Chancellor is now widely expected to make sweeping cuts to the benefits bill in just a few weeks. £6 billion is being mooted. And speaking in Parliament today, the Prime Minister promised to reform the current benefits system.
So will the Prime Minister set out how this government will give everyone who is able to work the support they need?
We inherited a system which is broken, it is indefensible economically and morally, and we must and we will reform it. We will have clear principles, Mr. Speaker. We will protect those who need protecting. We will also support those who can work back to work.
I'm joined now by the columnist at The Spectator, Ross Clark. Ross, good evening. Thanks for your company. A massive rise since the pandemic, and the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that Keir Starmer, when he was leader of the opposition, was calling for harder and faster, in my opinion, draconian lockdown rules, which potentially would have exacerbated these benefit claims now. What's your take on that?
Yes, and he was also, every time the Tories cut so much as a bean from the welfare bill when they were in power, Keir Starmer and all his colleagues used to shout, austerity, you know, it's evil. And when the Conservatives, Boris Johnson's government, put an extra £20 a week in people's pockets, in benefit claimants' pockets during lockdown and so on, when they withdrew it in 2021, the pandemic is effectively over, Keir Starmer said he's picking on the poorest people in the country. You can't cut benefits and this. And now he's saying he's, you know, the benefit system's far too generous. So
how does he square that now then? How does he justify to his voters?
Well, I mean, you know, he's found himself in power. Now he's got to find a budget, balance a budget, and realises that the benefit system is out of control. And, people sort of link this to sort of COVID, say, oh, we've got more people on long COVID and so on. The real reason for this rise, as I can see it, is that we're just not assessing people to see whether they're capable of work, these work capability assessments. I mean, before the pandemic, they were carried out in person. You had to present yourself to an office, you'd be examined by someone who'd assess what you could do, what you couldn't do.
Yeah.
And, if you were able to, you would be asked to search for a job. And now only 10% of these work capability assessments are carried out face-to-face, most of them on the telephone, online, or some are just sort of mere desktop exercises. So hundreds of thousands of people just being shunted on to these benefits.
Yeah, indeed. And also, Ross, 500,000 of them, that would be the day, 500,000 of them are citing poor mental health. I mean, how do you really assess if somebody's got poor mental health, aside from just going to the GP and saying, I don't feel myself, I feel a bit down today?
Yeah, well, so behind that is this sort of assertion that somehow work is bad for us, work would affect your mental health negatively. I think quite the opposite, really. I mean, there's nothing more stressful, depressing than not having a job, not having a reason to get up in the morning. And yet the benefit system is putting people in that position. What it should be doing is, giving them, work placements, finding them work placements, giving them a reason to get up, giving them a reason to exist, and the joy of earning money, the satisfaction of earning money through your own efforts, and that should be good for people's mental health. Instead, we're just somebody's been suffering a bit of stress, let's sign them off sick forever after, and it's just putting people into a pit of despair.
Yeah, and I'd argue as well, some may disagree watching this, but I'd argue as well, exercise is a massive part of that. I know for a fact from my own perspective and my own anecdotal evidence, if I've not trained for a couple of weeks, I will start to feel a bit more heavy in myself. And the moment I do go and exercise, I mean, Joe Wicks, for example, was a massive proponent of it during lockdown. He helps a lot of people, but exercise, I think, is a big part as well. Just finally, if Sir Keir Starmer doesn't have to worry about his voters for now, because he's got such a long term left, he does have to worry about his own MPs, Ross. 80 are going to rebel, apparently, against this bill, this move, which is more than, say, the winter fuel allowance.
Yes, I mean, a lot of Labour MPs will have a knee-jerk response. Any sort of proposal to cut benefits, they will be against it because they see themselves as a party of the poor, and taking benefits away is therefore bad, and they will always oppose benefit cuts. But at least, those sort of 80 Labour MPs, they're the consistent ones. Whereas, in opposition, Keir Starmer was taking that line, and now he's in government, he's suddenly realised that, he's got to pay the bill for these benefits, and it's no longer sustainable.
Yeah, it's easy to shout from the sidelines, isn't it, Ross? Ross Clark from The Spectator, thank you very much for your company.
Thank you.
Coming up, after 1,300 migrants lied about their ages in the first half of last year alone, so they blagged it by saying they were 15 or 14 perhaps. Some ended up in classrooms when the truth was they were 18, 19, 20 and older. Should asylum seekers be forced to undergo scientific age checks? That's what the Tories want. We're going to discuss that next. Oh, and there's still time to get tickets for Friday night's audience show with Bev Turner covering for Patrick, and she's got something very special planned.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Temperatures are falling once more out there this evening. It's going to be another pretty chilly feeling day tomorrow. A few more wintry showers here and there. But also many places dry and bright thanks to this area of high pressure that's slowly edging in. But around that high pressure, the winds are coming down from the north, feeding in more showers across northeast England and down across the Pennines in particular. Some snow on the hills, more likely rain or hail at lower levels. And many southern and western areas staying dry. Where we've got clear skies, there'll be fairly widespread frost over southwest Scotland. The cloud helping to keep temperatures up a little bit for much of England and Wales, but still some frost likely in the countryside. Many areas across the south will see the showers fading this evening, and that'll lead to a dry start tomorrow. Quite cloudy, but some sunshine over South Wales and southwest England. Where we've got these showers coming in across northern England, potential for things to be a bit icy for the morning commute, so just bear that in mind. The showers feeding in close to the coast will be of rain, but inland some sleet and a bit of hill snow possible. Good part of Scotland starting dry, but it will be starting cold and frosty for many, but quite a bit of sunshine through the central belt and for Belfast too. We'll see some sunny spells for England and Wales, but generally the cloud increasing as we see more showers drifting south through the day, developing inland over northern England, the Midlands, even southern counties of England. Again, chiefly of rain, but some sleet and hail certainly possible, even at lower levels. Feeling cold, 6 or 7 Celsius. Out on that breeze on the east coast, feels even colder. Elsewhere, maybe 9 or 10. Friday is a similar day, so we start with frost where we've had the clear skies. Could again be quite icy in the morning as we see these showers then developing through the day. Again, chiefly of rain, but some sleet and hail is possible in places. Becoming largely dry though through the weekend with some sunny spells, but always staying on the chilly side. Bye for now.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. Now, here's a big question for you. Should asylum seekers in the UK undergo scientific age checks? Because the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, there he is, he certainly thinks so. He's proposed an amendment to the government's border security bill to prevent adult migrants from improving their chances of remaining in the UK by falsely claiming to be children. And in the first half of last year, over 1,300 asylum seekers here were caught misrepresenting their age, a record high. And I can say, by the way, I'll just add, I'm sure there's plenty more who haven't been caught. One male asylum seeker, here he is, he spent 6 weeks posing as a Year 11 student at a school in Ipswich. The Home Office later confirmed that he was actually an adult. Can you imagine if your child was in that class, your daughter? And this chap here, who murdered an aspiring Royal Marine, he claimed to be 14 when he arrived in the UK. He was actually 18. And another addition to that guy, he'd already murdered 2 people in Serbia before he snuck into the UK. And then there's Ahmed Hassan, the Parsons Green bomber, who falsely claimed to be just 16 years old when it was quite clear he wasn't. I'm joined now by political commentator and migration expert Mike Jones. Mike, good evening. This seems like common sense, doesn't it? Surely we need to... I mean, in the absence of not really knowing who these people are anyway, where they're from, what their intentions are, surely the least we can do is do a quick test to see how old they are.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the spirit of the Tory party amendments. As you say, it's common sense, it's good for Britain's national security, and it's very good for the welfare of children. But the Labour Party won't accept it because it's probably incompatible with the Human Rights Act. My guess is it violates Articles 3, 8 and 14 of the European Convention of Human Rights, which is obviously part of the Human Rights Act.
So how were we doing it before? How were the Tories doing it if it's against the Human Rights Act?
Well, medical tests were introduced under the Nationality and Borders Act 2022, but they're not compulsory. So age tests encompass 3 stages. The first is a basic, sort of age verification test where you have immigration officers looking at the asylum seeker. They make off-the-cuff judgments. Is this person an adult or a child? If a red flag is raised, then they move on to what they call Merton compliant tests. So you have sort of interviews, behavioral and visual tests. And then if a red flag is raised again, they move on to the medical tests, but they're not compulsory. That's basically status quo. So the problem here is the Human Rights Act. I mean, my personal view is anybody who enters here illegally should be detained and deported. But you need to remove the HRA to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it just beggars belief. Why, aside from the Human Rights Act, what is it? What is the criticism of testing people for their age? Have you heard any decent arguments, aside from just it's against their human rights? What is the actual argument?
It's pretty much that. It's against their human rights.
Just pathetic.
They could invoke, Article 3, it's degrading in some way. Article 8, it's against their right to private and family life. Obviously, bodily integrity is part of that. Possibly invoke, Article 14, the principle of non-discrimination. Those are the arguments. But as you say, you've got 1,300 adults claiming to be minors in the UK. I mean, it's astonishing. There's a red line in British politics, and that red line is, does anything endanger the welfare and the lives of children? And, amongst these asylum seekers, some of them are going to be sexual predators. Some of them may have links with criminal gangs involved in trafficking. Some of them may claim to be minors to actually boost their asylum application. And then you'll have some that will want to, claim various benefits and so on and so forth. And then, of course, you mentioned the Parsons Green bomber, the Afghan asylum seeker who murdered, the aspiring Royal Marine. So there will be some very malevolent individuals there within the system claiming to be minors. It's a national security threat. It's a disgrace.
And also, I just wonder about the authorities, and from a very basic level, teachers, head teachers, border force. I'm not sure if we can get the picture up of the monster who murdered the Royal Marine. I think it was Bournemouth when he was 14. He was actually 18. I mean, I think there he is. On what planet is that guy 14? Let's use some common sense. Do we need scientific age checks to see that this guy isn't 14? I mean, am I being over the top here? Am I just being a bit unfair?
No, you're not. I mean, there was
he looks about 20. He looks older than me. I'm 35. He looks about 40.
Yeah, I mean, there was another recent case. I think he was a Sudanese asylum seeker, and he had like a receding hairline, and he had like crow's feet, and I think he was growing stubble.
Look at this guy.
Is that him? Yeah, possibly. They estimated his age was like 23 years old. But the courts,
look at this.
I know it's insane. The local authorities flagged this up, and then the courts ruled against them on human rights grounds. I mean,
could you imagine if you were a parent, right? I mean, had that picture up of the guy just there, receding hairline, and your daughter came home and said, "Oh, Dad, I'd like to bring Mohammed round for tea. He's 14. He's just come from Afghanistan." Well, look at that. What a joke. When are we going to use some common sense in this country and just realise that, as you said, for me, it breaches the social contract. You're putting young children at risk, particularly females, because you're not using common sense. We don't even need scientific testing for that. Just finally, last question to you. What do you make of the Tories' other amendment to the migration bill on deporting foreign criminals? At the moment, I think the threshold is, 12 months? But they want to change that so that anybody who commits a crime in the UK, if you're an immigrant here, you're off back home straight away, regardless.
Yeah, I think FNOs should serve their time. I think it's important for the victims that they spend time in prison. But yeah, once they serve their sentence, they should be booted out of the country. No ifs, no buts. That's basic natural justice, and it's part of the social contract, as you say, because ultimately the number one priority for the British government should be towards the British people. And yeah, I think it's disgusting that FNOs are not deported automatically after their sentences.
Well, you said it should be their priority. Do you think, Mike, that it is this government's priority, looking after British people?
No, I think Labour is mostly a post-national government. I mean, obviously they do pay attention to British issues, of course they do. But Sir Keir Starmer has this mentality where the sort of international human rights legal community takes precedence over...
Look at the Chagos Islands.
Yeah,
they would argue, Mike, they would argue if Sir Keir Starmer was here, he'd say, well, we've deported 30% more than last year and whatever the number is now, more than 2,000 illegals who shouldn't have been here.
That's a good point, yeah. Forced returns have gone up slightly. Voluntary returns, I think, have gone up slightly. The forced returns, though, are to very safe countries, you know, like Brazil, Romania, and so on.
Vietnam.
But this is... Yeah, Vietnam. Yeah, that's another example.
I say it all the time, Vietnamese nail bar workers. Do British people really care about Vietnamese nail bar workers doing your wife's nails, or do we care more about potential jihadis from faraway lands?
Well, basically, Labour is going for the low-hanging fruit, so they can get statistical victory, but they don't have any interest in actually solving the illegal migration crisis. So they want statistical victories. They can say, listen, we've increased forced returns by a slight amount. You know, they're fast-tracking people through the asylum system, granting them asylum. They can say, hey, you know, we've reduced the backlog. But the people coming across the English Channel, they're just increasing, you know, week by week, month by month. They're not actually interested in solving the problem. They just want optical victories and statistical victories, but it's not a wash with the British people.
All right, Mike, fascinating conversation. Thank you for your company. Mike Jones, political commentator and migration expert. Have a good evening. OK, coming up, another big hour. They're hammering them with inheritance tax, they're grabbing their land in compulsory purchase orders, and now, today, they've taken away their subsidies. So just why is this government so intent on destroying British farming? And in a GBNews exclusive, I'll speak to the brave firefighter who was forced out the job she loves because she refused to bow down to the cult of gender ideology. And ding ding, two Brexit heavyweights get physical outside Parliament.
That's assault! No.
I'll share with you the full clip from that in just a second. I'll be very keen to hear who you think is responsible, who's to blame for it escalating that much. We, of course, don't want to see violence on the streets at all, but when I play the full clip, I want to ask for your comments and your views on that, because I've got an opinion which you may not agree with. The full scrap and much, much more coming in just a few minutes, including all the front pages for tomorrow's newspapers. Back in just a sec.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Temperatures are falling once more out there this evening. It's going to be another pretty chilly feeling day tomorrow. A few more wintry showers here and there, but also many places dry and bright thanks to this area of high pressure that's slowly edging in. But around that high pressure, the winds are coming down from the north, feeding in more showers across northeast England and down across the Pennines in particular. Some snow on the hills, more likely rain or hail at lower levels. And many southern and western areas staying dry. Where we've got clear skies, there'll be fairly widespread frost over southwest Scotland. The cloud helping to keep temperatures up a little bit for much of England and Wales, but still some frost likely in the countryside. Many areas across the south will see the showers fading this evening, and that'll lead to a dry start tomorrow. Quite cloudy, but some sunshine over South Wales and southwest England, where we've got these showers coming in across northern England. Potential for things to be a bit icy for the morning commute, so just bear that in mind. The showers feeding in close to the coast will be of rain, but inland some sleet and a bit of hill snow possible. Good part of Scotland starting dry, but it will be starting cold and frosty for many, but quite a bit of sunshine through the central belt and for Belfast too. We'll see some sunny spells for England and Wales, but generally the cloud increasing as we see more showers drifting south through the day, developing inland over northern England, the Midlands, even southern counties of England. Again, chiefly of rain, but some sleet and hail certainly possible, even at lower levels. Feeling cold, 6 to 7 Celsius. Add on that breeze on the east coast, feels even colder. Elsewhere, maybe 9 or 10. Friday's a similar day, so we start with frost where we've had the clear skies. Could again be quite icy in the morning as we see these showers then developing through the day. Again, chiefly of rain, but some sleet and hail is possible in places. Becoming largely dry though through the weekend with some sunny spells, but always staying on the chilly side. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and the designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 10 p.m. This is Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Ben Leo.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman?
No, there is. There is.
So long and ta-ra to one of the most divisive politicians Scotland's ever seen. Nicola Sturgeon calls time on politics, but what legacy does she leave behind? And they say age is only a number. Well, that's certainly the case for more than 1,000 illegal migrants who have been blagging about their age and even sneaking into classrooms in Britain. The Tories are now demanding scientific age checks for illegals. Also tonight, the government makes it a hat-trick of blows to our hard-working farmers. Now, unbelievably, they're scrapping subsidies. So what's the real agenda? And the brave firefighter forced out of the job she loves because she refused to obey the cult of gender ideology. Andrea Pieri joins me live in a GB News exclusive. Day 2 of the Cheltenham Festival has concluded, but where best to watch the greatest show on turf? Gloucestershire, or perhaps in top British fashion, Benidorm. And talking of stallions, 2 Brexit heavyweights get physical outside Parliament.
That's assault! No.
On my panel tonight is Director of Popular Conservatives Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunewold.
Good evening, it's 10 o'clock. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. President Trump has said that the US can put pressure on Russia to accept that 30-day ceasefire deal with Ukraine, although the president added that he hoped that pressure wouldn't be necessary. Speaking during a meeting with the Irish Taoiseach, the president went on to add that, quote, there are things you could do in a financial sense that would be bad for Russia, and added that NATO can be a force for good. The President's latest comments come as Defence Secretary John Healey met with counterparts from France, Germany, Poland and Italy in Paris today for more talks on Ukraine. President Zelensky says he wants to use a potential 30-day ceasefire as a chance to draft a permanent peace plan which could include security guarantees. Breaking tonight, President Putin has visited the western Russian region of Kursk for the first time since Ukrainian forces seized some territory in the region. Here's what Defence Secretary John Healey had to say in Paris.
And I say to President Putin, over to you now. You said you want to talk, prove it. Accept the ceasefire, start negotiations and end the war. And make no mistake, the pressure is now on Putin.
The European Union was set up to take advantage of the US. That's what President Trump said as he was discussing his decision to impose tariffs on steel and aluminium imports. President Trump went on to say, also during that meeting with the Taoiseach, that he will respond to the European Union's counter-tariffs, adding that there will be very little flexibility on tariffs when they come in. Sir Keir Starmer has said that the UK will keep all options on the table to respond, and the Business Secretary described President Trump's decision to impose those global tariffs as disappointing. The UK steel industry has also warned the tariffs couldn't have come at a worse time. Canada and the European Union have announced retaliatory tariffs. President Trump set out his response earlier.
The European Union treats us very badly. They have for years. And as you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. And so I don't know why people get upset about that, because there's nothing more fair than that. There are some cases where they're a little beyond reciprocal because, you know, we've been abused for a long time as a country. We have been abused really for a long time, and we will be abused no longer.
And back here at home, the Queen has attended Style Day at Cheltenham Festival today, serving in her role as joint patron of the Jockey Club. Queen Camilla has been presenting trophies for the Queen Mother Champion steeplechase. And it's been a sporting day for the royal family, with Prince William attending Aston Villa's match with Club Brugge. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Ben.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening, hope you're well. I know the Prime Minister is a keen football fan, but was it totally necessary to deliver a hat-trick of blows to our hard-working British farmers today? First, there was the inheritance tax raid.
If you're a couple who own a farm, including a home on the farm, you can pass on £3 million tax-free to the next generation. And beyond that £3 million, you are taxed at half of the rate that everybody else is taxed for inheritance tax, at 20% compared to 40%.
Then we learned this week that Angela Rayner plans to give councils the power to compulsory purchase farmland at bargain basement prices, which could leave farmers well out of pocket.
It won't be for ministers to decide what land is unlocked. It will be for local authorities in any particular area to use these powers where they think it's appropriate. But I see the real potential for these powers primarily in urban areas on previously developed brownfield land, where regeneration projects can come forward, often really effectively.
And last night, unbelievably, it was announced farming subsidies have been halted by government in a fresh blow to rural communities. As the Daily Telegraph reported today, the main replacement to the EU-era subsidy scheme was paused to new applications without warning on Tuesday, leaving some farmers with holes in their budgets. The government said the sustainable farming incentive would be revised after the spending review in June, with a cap on how much more money farmers could receive. It seems to me, I don't know about you, but it seems to me there's an agenda against British farmers right now. What isn't so clear is why or what. I have my theories. For example, we still don't know why Bill Gates was in Downing Street just days before the budget alongside BlackRock CEO Larry Fink. Here they are, the biggest private farmland owner in the United States, Bill Gates, and the boss of the biggest asset manager in the world, with trillions under management, speaking with Rachel Reeves and Sir Keir Starmer, days before a budget that dealt a bitter blow to British farmers. The Prime Minister says the inheritance tax raid, for example, is to pay for the NHS and schools that will, of course, be used by farmers and their families.
People watching this will understand that that is a choice. They will know which they would prefer. Do they prefer their waiting list to come down? Do they want their mortgages to come down, the economy to start working for everyone? That's what we're trying to achieve. Or do we want to keep a tax break for farmers? But you can't have both.
But the estimated £500 million to be raised from the farming inheritance tax raid for the Treasury, a paltry amount in the grand scheme of things, isn't it? £500 million. That would fund the NHS for one day. So excuse me for thinking none of this is about money. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. The Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunewald. Adam Brooks, I saw your ears prick up at the mention of BlackRock there and Bill Gates. What's your thoughts on this whole attack on farmers?
It's far too much of a coincidence. As you said, BlackRock and Bill Gates are some of the biggest owners of farmland in America. Suddenly they fly over, and within days the budget comes out of the blue, an attack on our farmers. I've stood next to the farmers on many protests. At the end of the day, they put food on our table, they put food in our supermarkets. Without the farmers, you know, we are screwed, really, in this country.
I will say, Adam, I and others are just putting two and two together. Bill Gates was in Downing Street, the farmers have been attacked. But the interesting thing is Downing Street haven't said, and they still refuse to say, to journalists such as Lewis Brackpool via FOIs, what he was doing there. I don't know why the secrecy, but we are putting two and two together.
We are, but these three things have come out of the blue, and they are hurting farming terribly. In 2023, Keir Starmer said this. He said, every day seems to bring a new and existential risk to British farming. Losing a farm is not like losing any other business. You can't come back. You deserve better than that. So in 2023, he's talking up farming as being so important. Now they are risking its whole future. There's an agenda here. It doesn't make sense. As you say, to tax them for $500 million per year, but we give foreign farmers $500 million a year. So make it make sense. They're either incredibly stupid or there is a sinister agenda at play.
Zoe, what's your take, especially on the Bill Gates front as well?
Well, I don't really know much about this meeting between Keir Starmer and Bill Gates.
Nobody does, that's the thing. I mean,
so I can't really comment on that. But I think, listen, on this particular point about the subsidies, it seems to me that this is poorly communicated at a time where farmers clearly are feeling quite anxious about their future. Now, Labour will defend themselves and say they've got the highest farming budget. They put $5 billion into agriculture. You know, they will also say that the inheritance tax raid or the inheritance tax policy is actually a long-term policy to try and make sure that it's actual farmers who have this land and not multi-millionaires, billionaires who are buying up the land, sitting on it because they don't have to pay inheritance tax, making money on it. So it's not actually in the hands of British farmers. And I think that's actually a very honourable policy. I think that is good for British farmers. But I can understand why, alongside that, and obviously the confusion about how many farms are going to be impacted, if that's going to impact tenant farmers and to what extent, when you have a policy like this that has been poorly communicated at a time where British farming clearly is struggling as a result of many policies over the last decade, then I think that is a mess-up from Labour, and I think they should think about how they're going to communicate these policies, and I think they need to make sure that farmers are supported in the long run.
Can I ask you, though, before I go to Mark, is it about the money? £500 million, enough to fund the NHS for one day? You know, Keir Starmer sits there and says, if the farmers want to enjoy the NHS and, you know, improve waiting lists and so on, we need to do this. But for one day.
You know, unfortunately, I think it is about the money. I think this is a naivety of Labour. For me, I feel like they are tinkering around the edges, trying to find savings here and there, thinking that will solve all of Britain's problems. And actually, they're just scared of doing, like, the big policies that I think that could actually make a difference.
Scrapping net zero. Mark, your thoughts?
There is no element of this that should not have been included in the Labour Party's manifesto in 2024. The case that Zoe's just made is a reasonable one, but none of this is a surprise. If you wanted to change the way that we were treating agricultural land in the United Kingdom as part of a way of continuing farming through generations, you could have put that in their manifesto in 2024. They said nothing on this, and now they're rolling out as a surprise. That is a disgraceful way to operate. It is a surprise, and surprise upon surprise for the farming community. How are you supposed to deal with it if you're a farmer? Now, you can have an ideological argument about, Adam, I might disagree on this, should we subsidise farming or not? But what you can't do to the farming community is surprise them with a new financial announcement every week. So why wasn't this in the Labour manifesto when they won with a landslide last July?
I'm not a spokesperson for the Labour Party. I agree with you. I think they should properly communicate their policies.
So why didn't they put it in that?
I don't know. I don't work for the Labour Party, and I don't always give them my tick of approval. And I think there have been I will always say that.
So that makes me feel cynical about it.
Communication
I thought the argument
problems.
you put for it, Zoe, was a good one. And I think you could have put that to the British people, actually, that we're going to level up inheritance tax and all of the rest. We're going to try and do this to make sure that farming communities stay in the right hands. You could have argued that case. They chose not to. And since winning a landslide, appear to be persecuting a particular community. Why might that be? I'll tell you somebody I wouldn't sell job insurance to at the moment, which is any Labour MP in a rural seat.
Zoe, are Labour persecuting farmers? Are they deliberately going after them?
I don't think it's a deliberate choice. I think what is happening here is, as I said, Labour are not being brave. They are trying to tinker at the edges. They are trying to find little savings here and there.
I mean, it's this land grab that Angela Rayner is going ahead with, compulsory purchase orders based on the current value of the land for fields that will house many, many homes, which the land would be worth 10 times.
But this is a broader thing that Labour are trying to do. You know, they're trying to find land where they can build housing. This country desperately needs housing. So I actually, I do feel for farmers who are caught up in that. But again, I don't think this is deliberately trying to target British farmers.
Just a coincidence.
Well, no, it's not targeted at farmers. It is a compulsory
purchase orders to force them to sell the land, and now the scrapping.
Look, farmers are still going to be paying inheritance tax at a lower rate than other people. Well, yes, it is. I mean, so actually, you could say they're getting favourable treatment.
I speak to a lot of farmers, and yes, they might be asset rich, but they put those assets to work to feed us, to fill our supermarkets. Many farmers get up at 3 in the morning. They might go to bed at midnight. You know, some of them get 3 or 4 hours.
About 30 grand a year, 40 grand a year.
So many of them earn less than me and you, but the value of their land is put to work for our benefit. They shouldn't be taxed on that. The reason they've been exempt for inheritance tax for decades is for the continuity of family farming. Labour has put that at risk. I don't think these MPs realise what they're doing here. And for me, if our supermarket shelves are empty in 5 or 10 years because of Labour's policies here, there's a lot of questions to answer. Why have they done this?
Mark, if not for any sort of grand conspiratorial reason, is it just simply the fact that rural voters, farmers, aren't really going to be voting Labour? Much like the pensioners. They think they're all Tory voters.
You know, Ben...
Are they the new nasty party?
Well, yes. It does seem vindictive, doesn't it? But it's also electorally inept, right? This is a small amount of money economically. This is not going to solve the deficit problem. And it's a large number of people who, as Adam was saying, are kind of the backbone of the British community. I don't know why they're doing it. It doesn't solve their economic problem, and it completely screws them in vast areas of England. This is a disastrous economic policy. Doesn't raise you any beans, and it's a disastrous political one as well.
They don't want to talk about the 6.6 billion that we're spending on asylum seekers and the support of that.
It's small beer compared to that.
Yet we are raiding some of the most hard-working people in our country and our heritage.
And they're not raising billions, they're raising a few tens of millions. It's a pointless policy. It's vindictive.
That precise point on my show on Sundays. 6.6 billion, the majority of which is accommodation and hotels, but you've got asylum seekers being given trips to football stadiums, Premier League football stadiums for tours, sandwich deliveries, Kew Gardens.
We could halve that overnight, and that's 3-odd billion that we could use to fix hospitals, to fix our policing, to fix our roads. Instead, we're giving it to foreigners that are going to be net drain on our economy over the next 10, 20 or 30 years.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know what the agenda is. I don't think it takes an idiot to know that for £500 million, just in reference to the inheritance tax anyway, that for £500 million and dealing with the aftermath of it, as you mentioned, Mark, the risk-reward, the political fallout, all the bad headlines, is it really worth it for £500 million? So let's use our logic and common sense. It's not about the money. We're not stupid. Anyway, very quick question. What would you do with 17 grand? If I whacked 17 bangers on your lap?
I'd buy a Southampton FC season ticket for life.
Oh, really? That's about the cost of an Arsenal season for one season.
I'd go
Arsenal are better than Southampton.
I'd go to a beach somewhere with my kids.
Nice, sorry.
I'll pay for my wedding.
Oh, you're getting married?
I am, yeah.
When?
Congratulations.
Probably next year. We haven't set a date yet.
OK, well, unfortunately, you can't enter the Great British Giveaway, but viewers at home can. It's your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need to win.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, very good luck to you on that. Coming up next, I'll be joined by the woman who claims she was forced out the fire service. She was a hero, she was a firefighter. She was forced out of the job she loved simply because of her gender-critical views. Big interview coming up. You don't want to miss it. Back in just a tick.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As a steak and ale is the most popular one. That's the one that's in the British Pie Awards. We've got chicken. We do a just steak. All the steak is slow cooked overnight, and then we shred it and mix it with Tracy's signature gravy. We've also now been able to put fruit pies on, and we do quiches as well.
This family-run pie shop in Dinnington is going for a big win at the British Pie Awards. The busy South Yorkshire store has only been open for 6 weeks, and already it's hoping for a prize for its pies.
It's British tradition. You know, it lets especially independent people like us to get his name out there, especially if we win the award. Everybody loves a good pie, especially with we do meals with the mash and the chips and the peas and the gravy. We'll put baked beans on if they want them. It's just tradition, isn't it? Everybody loves a good pie.
For the customers here, pies are one of Britain's best dishes.
They're always full of goodness, aren't they? Hearty, filling, and you could put them with so many things, different vegetables, different types of potatoes. Yeah, just good all-rounder.
Feel good food, innit? Pies, yeah. It's not like takeaway food, it's just feel good food. Feel at home, you know.
If it's got a nice filling and a nice pastry, there's nothing better. But just like them, the easy meals. My family love all the pies here. I've come in about 3 times a week this week, especially the quiches that you can see coming out of the oven. They're freshly made. You can take them home and freeze them.
So here we go. We've got the Handmade Pie Company's steak and ale pie, the one that's been entered for the awards. Let's give it a try. That is absolutely delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. Now, here's a story for you. A Norfolk woman has been hounded out of her job and left humiliated, all because of her gender-critical beliefs. Andrea Pieri claims she's been the target of a witch hunt by Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service because she requested an order involving Norwich Pride be assigned to another staff member, citing her beliefs. The order included a commitment, a pledge, if you will, to Pride Allies, which requires support for the LGBTQ+ community from individuals, businesses or organisations. Pieri then subsequently faced a formal investigation by her employers and felt she had little option but to leave the job she loved. So I'm delighted to be joined by Andrea herself now. Good evening, Andrea. Sorry it's under these circumstances that we're having a chat. I mean, this sounds completely Orwellian, dystopian. Just run me through briefly what happened, the sequence of events. You were given this order to work on some Norfolk Pride event. You said, sorry, can you pass it to someone else? And then it hit the fan.
Oh, completely. I mean, it was just completely Kafkaesque. That's all I can describe the experience, really. So I've been working at Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service for 3.5 years. I loved that job. I was proud to work for the fire service. So my job was in as a procurement administrator, so I'd predominantly be responsible for ordering things like PPE and critical equipment. And I had this order request come in for Norwich Pride. It was in 2 parts. One was for a Pride Allies pledge, as you just mentioned. And the other part was for the Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service to have a stall at Norwich Pride. Now, because of my gender-critical beliefs, I said to my manager, had a quiet word with him, didn't make a fuss, didn't kick up anything. All I just said was, look, this is a little bit awkward. I've had this order come in, but due to my gender-critical beliefs, I don't want my name against anything that promotes gender ideology.
And they were fine with it, weren't they? Your manager was fine, and you thought nothing of it. But what happened? Somebody else made a complaint. Somebody heard about what had happened.
Yes, that's right. So the original person that asked for the order to be raised reported me to HR and the senior leadership team.
What a snitch.
I know. It was awful. I mean, out of the blue, a couple of days later, I was hauled into a meeting with HR. I was told that it was an informal meeting, but put it this way, it wasn't exactly tea and biscuits, if you know what I mean.
So you said they made you feel like a pariah, and apparently they were asking you about, I mean, what kind of questions were they asking you?
Yes, so I had a letter of expectation issued against me, and following that, I had a meeting where I was basically grilled on my views and had to justify my objections to Pride. It was quite humiliating, and I explained, no, it's not I'm not homophobic. It's precisely because of my opposition to homophobia.
So your concern was sorry to interrupt. Your concern really was the trans element of it. Your argument was they were saying you're homophobic, Miss Pieri, but you were saying no. I think the trans movement in itself inherently is homophobic because, for example, they're telling young gay kids that they're born in the wrong body. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. You know, sterilisation and medicalisation of children, invasion of women's single-sex spaces and women's sports. I just had strong moral objections to that and didn't want my name associated against it.
That's fair enough. I mean, there was also some social media posts as well, which they came and showed you some of your posts. Give us an example of some of the posts that they put forward to you.
Yeah, so one of the posts was, so it was mostly likes and retweets, a lot of it of gender-critical content, a lot of pro-Israel content as well. So I retweeted a caption saying lesbians don't like dick. And I was asked to explain that. And I just thought to myself, how do you explain that? Isn't that self-explanatory? Lesbians are biological women that are solely attracted to other biological women and not men.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, God, what a mess, what a mess. And there'll be people watching this now with great respect for the fire service and all, you know, the emergency services. And do you think they should be doing stuff like this? Should you have to justify or explain your beliefs outside work about something that has nothing to do with fighting fires or procuring PPE or looking after firefighters? Should this even exist?
No, absolutely not. I mean, gender ideology has no place, least of all in the public sector. This is not what taxpayers' money should be spent on. And I think a lot of people would be horrified. I mean, this Pride Allies pledge is just money down a black hole, essentially.
Yeah. Imagine being told you had to pledge your allegiance to Pride. And as I said, your issue isn't with the gay aspect of it, the lesbian aspect of it. It's the trans aspects, which just look at the Cass report and what happened at the Tavistock. You shouldn't really have to justify why you are a bit reluctant to support the trans and gender ideology movement. Just tell us, what are you doing now, Andrea, for work?
I'm just between jobs. I mean, since leaving the fire service, I've done a few bits here and there, you know, but nothing permanent. So
all right.
So I am so I am looking for more permanent work.
Well, good luck to you. And although you're probably going through a tough time now with work and money, I don't know, I'm just assuming, I think you should be very proud of yourself for sticking by your morals and your values, because no money is worth that. So I think a lot of our viewers, I'd hope, would back you on that front. Andrea Pieri, thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
A Norfolk Fire and Rescue spokesperson said in a statement, "We do not comment on individual cases of misconduct," and Miss Pieri left the organisation whilst an investigation was ongoing. Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service is an inclusive organisation and employer, and we strive for the highest possible standards of conduct and professionalism. We take all allegations of misconduct very seriously and will investigate any breaches and take appropriate action where required. And if you were offended by Andrea's D word there, I apologise. Right, coming up, all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages with my panel, and we're off to the races as well. But no, we're not going to Cheltenham in Gloucestershire. Instead, we're going live to Benidorm to find out why thousands of punters have descended on the Spanish coastal town to watch the racing. Back in a sec.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
We have more unsettled weather to come across western parts of the Med through the next few days. There's some heavy, thundery rain pushing into parts of Portugal, including Madeira, also affecting Gibraltar, and heavy rain feeding into northern parts of Italy too. Further east, though, higher pressure here means it's that bit drier, and there'll be a good deal of sunshine too. We also have heat wave conditions building here. Temperatures for some will rise to around 5 to 15 degrees above average. See you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
First of all, are we talking about the West and the East, or is this a Western phenomenon?
Wholly Western phenomenon, which excludes China, where things are still in a healthy state.
What's happening in the West, then?
It's been going on for quite a while, and it started with the universities, and then affected the biennales conferences. Basically, it's this left drift, and the sense that as in Vogue, we should care about the downtrodden, the marginal groups, the global south. We should criticize what's going on, and there's a sense of illegitimacy with everything which now is developed in most of the real-world developments we are, for instance, doing, as being neoliberal architecture. And so the discourse is shifting away, ignoring that and saying this is fallen, this is commercial, this is compromised. And we have a discourse about another world caring and looking after those who have been discriminated against, and that pulls a discourse and critical debate away from what's going on, and therefore what's going on is bereft of critique, of exposure, of debate, and becomes a craft.
We are looking at, on the screen at the moment, at some of the great buildings that you have been involved in. So tell me about the background to these. I mean, you were one of the architects here. What was your education? What was your inspiration? What led you to create buildings that look like that?
So I was originally educated in Stuttgart, Germany. I came here as a student, went to the South Bank University in exchange program, and as a student joined Zaha Hadid, who was a rising star in the field. And at that time, there was really a thriving discourse in architecture, grappling with this new world.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. The first of tomorrow's papers have just dropped. Let's look at the Metro. Headline reads, deal or no steal. See what they did there? Anger as Trump tariffs start, but Keir Starmer is holding out for a UK-US trade agreement. The Eye. Benefits turmoil in number 10 as Labour MPs fight Rachel Reeves' plan to cut welfare. £6 billion in cuts they're eyeing up. I guess a return to austerity, perhaps. And around 80 MPs, Labour MPs, are mooted to be rebelling more, by the way, than the winter fuel allowance fiasco. The Independent. Keir Starmer hints he'll hit back at Trump as trade war intensifies. Nice picture there from the second day of Cheltenham Festival. The day started a little bit snowy and frosty, apparently. But not for those watching the action from Benidorm in Spain. And the Daily Telegraph, I'll tackle flabby state, vows Keir Starmer. I read this the first time and thought, oh, he's going after the overweight, but he's not. He's talking about the flabby budget and the state of the finances. Nice picture there of the Queen as well, Camilla, who's in shock at something happening at Cheltenham. Should we talk about, guys, welcome back to the panel, Mark, Adam, forgot your name, sorry, Adam. Sorry. This situation with the welfare bill, £6 billion being eyed up for cuts, Zoe. A massive rebellion, though. Is he going to U-turn on this, Keir Starmer?
I doubt it, mainly because I don't think the size of the rebellion is enough to actually prevent any of this legislation going through, because, as we know, the Tories have also lent their support behind shrinking the welfare state. But having said that, this is still going to be problematic, and it's going to be problematic for a couple of reasons. The first is that there are going to be lots of MPs in the Labour Party who are very, very worried about their vulnerable constituents. They're going to be worried about the optics of this, alongside things like the winter fuel cut as well. You know, the idea that Labour has almost become the nasty party, taking money away from vulnerable and poor people. And then, of course, there's also the fact that voters aren't, not all Labour's core vote are not going to like this. You know, they don't like the idea of Labour choosing to kind of pick on vulnerable people or those who are sick or disabled.
But are Labour the party of the working class and the vulnerable anymore?
Well, they're supposed to be.
Class champagne socialists.
I mean, they're supposed to be, but I mean, I do take your point, because some of the things that Labour has done since coming to power, it does raise the question of why aren't they speaking up for vulnerable people who really need the state support? And, you know, I feel personally disappointed with Labour for some of their policies, which, you know, I'd rather see them go after those with the broader shoulders than the sick and vulnerable and disabled and pensioners who need the winter fuel allowance.
Mark, there were Tory voters today even praising this policy, saying it sounds sort of... I mean, I'd argue the Tories aren't right-wing, but it sounds, you know, centre-right, almost.
Yeah, damn right. I mean, there's a mathematical issue here, not an ideological one. The welfare state is out of control. If you look at how much the British government just takes from one cohort and gives to another, whether it's based on, you know, housing benefit, pensions or whatever, it's £14,000 per household per year.
Gosh.
And we have still not solved poverty. The welfare state is colossally expensive and has not solved poverty. It is the biggest single item on the government's bill, and it needs to go down. It has failed. I wouldn't mind that bill if poverty had been eliminated in the United Kingdom. But the higher the bill goes up, the more I'm told there's still poverty. Well, £15,000 per household per year is not going to solve it. £16,000 per household a year is not going to solve it. So we need... Now, where I'm with Zoe, on the most vulnerable, fine. Let's say there's 5% of the population, maybe 10%, who we need to support. But the 90% of the population need to stand on their own 2 feet. The welfare state is not about helping the generality of the population. It's about helping the most vulnerable, maybe 1 in 20 people. And we need to get everybody else off welfare and into work. So I'm quite pleased that the Labour government's going in this direction. I don't think they're doing so ideologically. I think they're doing so as a matter of mathematics and economics. But we have to move further and faster in this direction and get back to the foundations of the welfare state, which was a small amount of support at subsistence levels for a very short amount of time.
Yeah, it used to be... I remember when I was a child, it used to be fairly taboo and shameful even to... If a family member was going to sign on, I remember being dragged out.
And now it's the norm, Ben. Now it's the norm.
Yeah, now it's just normal. Adam, it says here that anxious Labour MPs are pushing for changes. Number 10 and ministers are meeting would-be rebels to try and reassure them. But the government apparently is panicking and could make small changes, according to MPs who've been dragged into Downing Street.
We're called Benefit Britain for a reason. There's so many gaming our system. Ben, something has to change. But I've spoke to people over the last day or so, and this is actually going to hit genuine cases, disabled people as well. They really need to try and tackle the benefit fraud in this country. It is widespread. And, you know, you can't do that by attacking the people that genuinely need it as well.
But you agree the benefits bill should fall?
Oh, 100%. Like, under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, too many millions become dependent on benefits in this country. It become a lifestyle choice.
But I think there's two things.
That needs to end.
I think there's 2 things that need pointing out. The first is that there is a large portion of people who claim universal credit who are in work. Part of the problem here is that work doesn't pay enough, OK? You have people who are nurses claiming universal credit. You have people with families claiming universal credit who work several jobs. Work isn't paying enough, so we need to sort that out. The other thing is that PIP, so personal independence payments, they actually help people work. They give disabled and sick people the support they need to actually find work. So I think this idea that we need to go after people who are taking advantage of the system, which actually isn't a large proportion, it isn't, the figures don't bear that out. It's just, this isn't going to do that. This is going to take the money away from those who are vulnerable and those who need support.
OK. 1 second. Work does pay, but unfortunately, successive governments want to tax us so heavily that it doesn't. And you might as well sit on your settee and claim your £2,000 a month, right, rather than working. That's what's wrong with this country.
Yeah, I know. I was talking about inheritance tax. Well, I've just moved house, and I was the guys we bought the house from are paying inheritance tax. I said to my wife, you know, you graft all your life. You're taxed on your money, you're taxed on this, you're taxed on that, you're taxed for the car that you use to get to work, you're taxed on the petrol that you fuel yourself to get to work, you pay VAT on the food that you buy, and then you're
taxed for dying as well.
And then you finally get a house and you're taxed for croaking. And the estate and the hard graft you wanted to leave for your child, the government takes what?
Why do you think so many people are going to places like Dubai?
Yeah, I will say that I used to really want to move to Dubai. I went there on holiday again in January, and spent some longer time there, 2 weeks and a bit. Actually, it's a pretty soulless place. It's a motorway in the desert. It's fun for kids. It's nice weather, but
people that want to keep
Britain
more
is
of their
arguably
money
prettier than
and want to enjoy their life and not give it to the government.
Yeah,
it's become a choice.
We can beat Dubai if our tax regime is similar.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. Should we look at the Daily Telegraph very quickly? The King tells of deepest affection for Canada. This, to me, is well, it could be argued that it's an intervention in politics. It comes off the back, of course, of Donald Trump wanting to annex Canada and make them the 51st state. The King has said he's expressed his deepest affection for Canada. So is this an intervention in politics, or am I...
Well, do you know what? I'm not a monarchist, but I do have a fondness for King Charles, because I do think he likes to make these tongue-in-cheek comments that are slightly provocative. I mean, we saw him do it to Liz Truss. He wore that tie which looked like the Greek flag around the Elgin Marbles, and now he's talking about his deepest affection for Canada. I think he's a bit more of a little bit of a less stickler for precedent, and I think he does make it quite clear in his own way his feelings about certain political topics, and I quite like it.
Yeah, Adam, His Majesty held a private audience at Buckingham Palace yesterday with the 2 Canadian officials. And that's where he made the comments, apparently.
Look, I hate all this. I was a big lover of the Queen because I used to sit there and watch the Queen with my nan. I don't particularly like King Charles, and, you know, my connection to the royal family now of this country couldn't be further from what it was.
He should ask the USA to join the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
The USA is not in the Commonwealth. That would be a really good
You think
sign.
Trump would like that?
I don't know if he'd like it.
I think he might. I think he might.
OK, more papers coming up after the break, including that almighty bust-up between Lee Anderson and anti-Brexit campaigner Steve Bray. He is a menace. But I'll play the full clip and see what your opinion is. There's still time to get tickets for Friday night's show with Bev Turner, who's covering for Patrick, and she's got something very special planned.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Temperatures are falling once more out there this evening. It's going to be another pretty chilly feeling day tomorrow. A few more wintry showers here and there, but also many places dry and bright thanks to this area of high pressure that's slowly edging in. But around that high pressure, the winds are coming down from the north, feeding in more showers across northeast England and down across the Pennines in particular. Some snow on the hills, more likely rain or hail at lower levels. And many southern and western areas staying dry. Where we've got clear skies, there'll be fairly widespread frost over southwest Scotland. The cloud helping to keep temperatures up a little bit for much of England and Wales, but still some frost likely in the countryside. Many areas across the south will see the showers fading this evening, and that'll lead to a dry start tomorrow. Quite cloudy, but some sunshine over South Wales and southwest England, where we've got these showers coming in across northern England. Potential for things to be a bit icy for the morning commute, so just bear that in mind. The showers feeding in close to the coast will be of rain, but inland some sleet and a bit of hill snow possible. Good part of Scotland starting dry, but it will be starting cold and frosty for many, but quite a bit of sunshine through the central belt and for Belfast too. We'll see some sunny spells for England and Wales, but generally the cloud increasing as we see more showers drifting south through the day, developing inland over northern England, the Midlands, even southern counties of England. Again, chiefly of rain, but some sleet and hail certainly possible, even at lower levels. Feeling cold, 6 to 7 Celsius. Add on that breeze on the east coast, feels even colder. Elsewhere, maybe 9 or 10. Friday's a similar day, so we start with frost where we've had the clear skies. Could again be quite icy in the morning as we see these showers then developing through the day. Again, chiefly of rain, but some sleet and hail is possible in places. Becoming largely dry though through the weekend with some sunny spells, but always staying on the chilly side. Bye for now.
Welcome back. More front pages have just dropped. Let's start with The Sun. Our girl, Michelle and Mark reveal baby Palmer. This is Michelle Keegan and Mark Wright today revealing they are proud parents of a baby daughter. And I was just saying to the panel, I'm not a massive fan of showbiz couples or celebrities, but these two, I have wondered for years, and I've said to my wife, I wonder why they haven't had a child yet. Apparently it's because Michelle's just been working so hard, and yeah, I'm pleased for them. I'm glad they've got a kid. It's a life-changing experience. It's a blessing and a grace from God, so well done.
I can tell you why they've named the baby Palmer.
Oh, yeah? Because Cole Palmer?
No, Mark's a big lover of Mallorca. I see him out there most years as well, so he's named it after the capital.
And it's the spelling Palma. Yeah. Interesting.
Nice.
I'm pleased for him.
Maybe I'll call my next child Ibiza. The Daily Mail, record 5 million forced to pay higher tax rate. Fury as stealth tax raid punishes middle-class drivers as fears grow. Rachel Reeves will extend the threshold freeze in mini-budget. Just as you were saying, Adam, you know, if there is one thing about going abroad to the likes of Dubai, which I think is pretty soulless, it's the tax rate. It will never happen here, though. And again, another nice picture of Michelle Keegan and Mark Wright on the front. Right, a little earlier today, this is the one you've all been waiting for, 1 hour and 40 minutes for. There was a bit of a scuffle, handbags maybe, between Reform MP Lee Anderson and the anti-Brexit protester, bit of a menace actually, Steve Bray in Westminster.
500 billion. How many parties have you been in, Lee? You just jumped ship.
I'm going to another party in a bit. I'm taking this one.
That's assault. No. He went for me.
There's a thug. He just nothing but a thug. No, he did. He went for me. Now this is an easy option. He's a thug. You need arrested.
You're a coward, a liar, a cheat. It's on camera. It's on camera.
Right, who was to blame for that then? Adam, who do you think?
I just don't like to see that. I like Lee a lot, but you know what Steve Bray's going to do. He shouted at me before in Parliament Square.
What did he call you?
For me, he's an idiot. He just kept swearing. You know, I just laughed and walked away. But I don't think Lee Anderson needs to be doing that. I don't think, especially with what's going on with Reform at the moment, I don't think people want to see that particular.
Yeah. Zoe, your take?
I mean, it did look like Lee flicked his hat first.
Yeah.
So you probably shouldn't do that as a sitting MP.
That's my thoughts of it as well. Yeah. I just imagine if I was... Look, I don't particularly like Steve Bray. I don't know him personally, but he's an absolute menace. I mean, the amount of times we've had GBNews breakfast clips of him in the background holding stupid signs or whatever.
Ben,
but that's his democratic right,
yeah.
OK?
I know, it's his 9th yellow card offence. It should have been Steve Bray.
Right.
I don't know who pushed who, but forever and ever and ever, he's doing this to MPs. And I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'd need to see the clip again. He's pushed a member of Parliament.
Well, no, Lee Anderson. This is what I was going to say, which is probably unpopular to our viewers. Lee Anderson, first of all, as far as I could see, flicked his hat first. And I was thinking, if that was me, if somebody was squaring up to me and flicking my hat, that to me, I mean, Bray pushed him back, and I think that's justified.
I think he should be barred from that area because he just terrorises members of Parliament, and it's just not a good look on our...
He's run for Parliament once, and he got 3% of the vote.
That's what Lee Anderson said to him. He said, nobody's voted for you. He's called him a scrounger. He said, you're unemployed, go and get a job. Anyway, the scuffles continue. Right, let's move on, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but part of the Amazon rainforest has been chopped down to build a road for an upcoming climate conference. Yes, you heard me right. Take a look at this. A new highway cutting through the Amazon rainforest is under construction for COP30 in Brazil later this year. It's a 4-lane road that aims to ease traffic for over 50,000 attendees, but it sparked outrage, obviously, due to its environmental impact. Mark, this is just, I mean, it completely contradicts the very purpose of a climate summit, doesn't it?
Stop these summits. Each of these summits, I'll tell you what they'll say, because I've been witnessing this since COP23. This is the last chance to save mankind. Yeah. They always say at each summit.
They've had 30,
so why do you need another one?
They've had 30 editions of it.
We're either going to succeed or fail. This is a total racket. Look, you know, it's useful to get people to talk about the environment, but this is a racket. You do not need 50,000 people to meet for a gathering to talk about the future of the environment, let alone doing so in a way which is so egregiously anti-environmentalist.
Adam, call me a bit OTT. I think this is really evil behaviour. Chopping down sacred trees that have been... I love trees. They've been there for many, many years. They're full of wisdom. They're beautiful. Chopping them down so you can get 50,000 delegates to your scam conference.
For me, it highlights the complete climate con. Let's be honest, in my opinion, the climate propaganda is so they can tax us and control us over the next few decades. That just shows the hypocrisy and the absurdity of these climate lunatics, you know, and most of them will probably fly in on private jets and then they want to tell us that we can't have one holiday a year. I'm sick and tired of it, and I think people are waking up to this con.
All right, you haven't got your heat pump there in your house then. Sorry, are climate conferences such as COP30 a con? Are they a scam?
I think it's important to get people, you know, world leaders together to talk about some of the greatest issues facing us.
50,000 of them.
Well, but you know, also, I think that is appalling, cutting down trees in the Amazon rainforest. It's absolutely... Well, and also, the miracles of technology, can't we all just zoom in now? I don't know. I mean, I would love to know whether these events end up in any way being carbon neutral, or if actually there's a lot of greenwashing that goes on.
Yeah, and there's, as you said, Adam, every time I have a climate guest on, I ask them the very simple question. In 1970, they were warning of Siberian climates in London by the year 2000. One expert, David Viner, I think his name was, a climate scientist, was saying that by the year 2005, that children in the UK won't know what snow is, and so on and so on. There are dozens of these predictions, and the very simple question I have for them is, what's different this time?
Look, it's like COVID. You put junk into these models and you get junk out. They have no idea what's going to go on with the climate over the next 20, 30 or 40 years. But what they do know is that there's a hell of a lot of money for governments to be able to tax us and control us with to get there, or pretend that they're going to get there. China are building a power station, one a month, I believe, and yet we think that whatever we do in this country is going to affect world climate. What utter nonsense. We're going to make ourselves poorer and we're going to cause blackouts.
Well, there's always good money in predicting that the apocalypse is going to happen.
Yeah.
But so far, it hasn't.
Yeah, just to let you all know, you'll be pleased to know that lots of viewers on your say think we're all a bunch of snowflakes for thinking Lee Anderson was responsible for that handbag scrap.
I didn't say that. I was on his side.
Oh,
I just said it was needless. I didn't say that. You know, Lee's my friend, so...
Yeah, well, I just thought, if someone's squaring up to you, the one thing... If someone flicked my hat... I mean, for me, that's an excuse
How often do you wear a hat?
I'm going to make
a big top hat.
I'm going to make a point here. Mike Ainsley, there was no reason for him to have that fight in the street. We don't need to start picking fights.
Steve Bray's there to pick a fight.
One man who's all love and no war is Josh Howie from Headliners. Josh, what's in the show tonight?
Well, if it's going to get people to stay up and watch our show, then I'll say that it was definitely not Lee Anderson's fault.
Hey, there we go.
There we go. We've got lots of great stories. We've got Are You Married? Is going to make you fatter. Benefit cuts, tariff cuts. Germany buried a report into the origins of COVID. Goodbye, Nicola Sturgeon. And do you want to live on vaccine drive? It's going to be a lot of fun.
OK, great stuff. I disagree with you, Josh, so if you fancy a fight over it to see who's correct, then we can do it in the break before Headliners. Thank you, mate. Thank you at home for your company tonight. Really appreciate it. That's it from me covering Patrick. Bev is here tomorrow and Friday. I'm back, of course, on Friday morning on Britain's Newsroom, and then my show at the weekend. Panel, thank you, Mark, Adam, Zoe. Great to have your company. I'll leave you to enjoy your sleep, or Headliners, rather, and have a good night. See you.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Temperatures are falling once more out there this evening. It's going to be another pretty chilly feeling day tomorrow. A few more wintry showers here and there, but also many places dry and bright thanks to this area of high pressure that's slowly edging in. But around that high pressure, the winds are coming down from the north, feeding in more showers across northeast England and down across the Pennines in particular. Some snow on the hills, more likely rain or hail at lower levels. And many southern and western areas staying dry. Where we've got clear skies, there'll be fairly widespread frost over southwest Scotland. The cloud helping to keep temperatures up a little bit for much of England and Wales, but still some frost likely in the countryside. Many areas across the south will see the showers fading this evening, and that'll lead to a dry start tomorrow. Quite cloudy, but some sunshine over South Wales and southwest England, where we've got these showers coming in across northern England. Potential for things to be a bit icy for the morning commute, so just bear that in mind. The showers feeding in close to the coast will be of rain, but inland some sleet and a bit of hill snow possible. Good part of Scotland starting dry, but it will be starting cold and frosty for many, but quite a bit of sunshine through the central belt and for Belfast too. We'll see some sunny spells for England and Wales, but generally the cloud increasing as we see more showers drifting south through the day, developing inland over northern England, the Midlands, even southern counties of England. Again, chiefly of rain, but some sleet and hail certainly possible, even at lower levels. Feeling cold, 6 or 7 Celsius. Add on that breeze on the east coast, feels even colder. Elsewhere, maybe 9 or 10. Friday's a similar day, so we start with frost where we've had the clear skies. Could again be quite icy in the morning as we see these showers then developing through the day. Again, chiefly of rain, but some sleet and hail is possible in places. Becoming largely dry though through the weekend with some sunny spells, but always staying on the chilly side. Bye for now.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We want to spruce up your spring with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash that you can spend however you like. But that's not all, as you'll also receive not one, but 2 brand new designer watches and a fabulous Mulberry handbag. For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
I know. So, Chef Theo Michaels joins us in the studio to talk about this. We know we've got a problem with food waste in this country, Theo, but this idea that there's a younger generation who are just reading the back of a packet and going, well, that must have gone off then, throwing it in the bin. Why do they do that when maybe we wouldn't?
Do you know what? I think we live in an increasingly sanitised, bubble-wrapped world, right, where we've become detached from our food, we've become detached from using a bit of common sense. And so I think there's a generation that are doing exactly this. They're looking at a best before date to start with, which actually is meaningless. Best before date is me turning around to you two going, the fish should be at its prime on Tuesday, right? Yeah. But that's not the use by date. The use by date could be a week later. You know, we say the sniff test. That's what we should be doing. So I've had it before. I had a great experience once. I walked into a supermarket and I saw an Italian guy I know, and he was jumping around with so much excitement as he was collecting handfuls of Parmesan cheese that they said, it was going out of date. And he was laughing, so he was going, we age this stuff for years. Yes. It doesn't go out of date. Yeah. So he was buying it by the truckload. And I think the key thing is there is this sort of sniff test that people talk about, but it's absolutely right. It's ingrained in us. It's instinctive that if we smell something that's off, it's like giving someone a dose of salts.
I'm also wondering, with these dates on these packaging, did it actually do a favour to the supermarkets because it meant that you're throwing them away and buying less?
100%.
Buying more.
The use by dates only came out in the 70s, right? And that was done by one particular supermarket. And for me, I can't help be cynical about it, Bev. Who was it? It was Marks and Spencer's.
Was it?
Marks and Spencer's in the 70s.
They all followed suit.
And yet...
They all followed suit.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Thanks for joining us. It's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out Labour versus Labour over the benefits. How is the EU fighting back against Trump? And we pay tribute to one of our favourite politicians to bag on, Nicola Sturgeon. I'm Josh Howie, and tonight I'm joined by funny people Archie Manners and Nick Dixon to take you through Thursday's top stories. This is Headliners. But before tomorrow's news, let's go to tonight's headlines with Katie Bowen.
Josh, thank you and good evening. Your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. President Trump has said that the US can put pressure on Russia to accept that 30-day ceasefire deal with Ukraine, although the president added that he hoped that wouldn't be necessary. Speaking during a meeting with the Irish Taoiseach, the president went on to add that, quote, there are things you could do in a financial sense that would be bad for Russia, and that NATO can be a force for good. The president's latest comments come as Defence Secretary John Healey met with counterparts from France, Germany, Poland and Italy in Paris today for more talks on Ukraine. President Zelensky said he wants to use a potential 30-day ceasefire as a chance to draft a permanent peace plan which could include security guarantees. And breaking tonight, President Putin has visited the western Russian region of Kursk for the first time since Ukrainian forces seized some of the territory in that region. Here's what Defence Secretary John Healey had to say in Paris.
And I say to President Putin, over to you now. You said you want to talk, prove it. Accept the ceasefire, start negotiations and end the war. And make no mistake, the pressure is now on Putin.
The European Union was set up to take advantage of the US. That's what President Trump said as he was discussing his decision to impose tariffs on steel and aluminium imports. President Trump went on to say also during that meeting with the Taoiseach that he will respond to the European Union's counter-tariffs, adding that there will be very little flexibility on tariffs when they come in. Sir Keir Starmer has said that the UK will keep all options on the table to respond, and the Business Secretary described President Trump's decision to impose those tariffs as disappointing. The UK steel industry has also warned that tariffs couldn't come at the worst time. Canada and the European Union have announced retaliatory tariffs. President Trump set out his response earlier.
The European Union treats us very badly. They have for years. And as you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. And so I don't know why people get upset about that, because there's nothing more fair than that. There are some cases where they're a little beyond reciprocal because, you know, we've been abused for a long time as a country. We have been abused really for a long time, and we will be abused no longer.
And the government has announced tonight 4 days of events, celebrations and activities to mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day. The Culture Secretary has unveiled the programme to ensure that the next generation remember the values that veterans fought for. Catherine Forster spoke to Lisa Nandy about the plans.
The programme of events that we're announcing for VE Day 80 is going to bring the past flickering back to life for that generation, whether it's through the work we're doing here at the National Theatre, with letters to loved ones, asking children to go into their attics and family albums, to get letters from their relatives to share them as part of our national story and the way that we honour the legacy of that generation, or whether it's through the film that we're making with James Graham, which will bring that to life for that generation. We're determined that these incredible veterans will be able to hand on the torch to this next generation.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, where we give you the very best of tomorrow's newspapers with the very best of today's comedians. First things first, going to have a look at the front pages. The Daily Mail, record 5 million forced to pay higher rate tax. The Eye, benefits turmoil. And number 10, as Labour MPs fight Reeves' plan to cut welfare. And The Guardian, Starmer faces MPs' anger over major cuts to welfare. So, more front pages coming up in a few minutes. But first of all, Archie, welcome. Hello. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be back.
Just get on with telling the Mail story.
Well, the Mail story is that 5 million more people are going to be in the higher rate of tax. So if you earn more than about 50 grand up to about 125 grand. This is what economists call fiscal drag, which is also Rachel Reeves' stage name when she goes gay clubbing.
Nice joke.
There we are. Got one in, didn't I? Straight off the bat.
Do you remember that, Nick? Do you remember when we told jokes on the show?
Yeah, that's not allowed
When
now.
we cared.
Yeah.
Do you remember we would write jokes?
Well, you'll be getting a text from Rachel in the break.
I wrote that fiscal drag. She's coming up and she's going to be all made up. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We've got to up our game, Nick.
Here for the next hour,
we
ladies
need
and gentlemen.
one joke.
You only need one. You only need one good one. But essentially, this means more people are paying higher rates of tax, which as comedians we wouldn't understand.
Yes, absolutely.
Obviously, inheritance tax. Obviously, I pay a very high rate of, sounding like I do, but